Hello everyone. So today we're going to talk about how to write, or rather on writing. We can also call this how to write. How to write. Right? So first of all, there are few pointers that there is a technical form of writing and there is a non-technical form of writing. That is how you should differentiate between these. So non-technical is something that we are not touching, but technical is something that we are exploring. So ideally, most of your sentences are going to have data, or they are going to point towards some relevant information on some relevant concept, or they are going to make some sort of argument. Ideally, these are the things that are going to happen when you're going to write any sentence or to write on a particular topic. As such, there will be some data that you will have to cite, right? Cite as references. There will be some information that you have to portray in order to explain it better. There would be some concepts that you have to explain. Maybe, somewhere blockchain is defined very beautifully, but now you are applying it for climate change, and climate change is also written very beautifully, blockchain is also written very beautifully, but both of them together are not written as beautifully. So this would be something new, but you will have to adopt the way how to write these. You'll have to learn the way how to write these. So ideally, the way I go about it, I think about lines and I think about paragraphs, right? So every paragraph should hold some meaning, and there should be some reason of making a paragraph. That is point number one. And every paragraph is in turn going to have 3 to 4 lines, or 5 to 7 lines, or 8 to 10 lines. Depends on the scope of the paper, or depends on the scope of the paragraph that you're writing or talking about. Ideally, 3 to 4 lines are enough. 3 to 4 lines are enough. For example, when you talk about the introduction of your paper and you're writing the very first paragraph, right? Ideally, I would expect for all the papers, the first paragraph should be written in this manner. There should be first line that should quote some number, that should quote numbers from some standard report. From some standard report. There are many standard repositories to get data from, and that should be cited. Then first line is on the numbers and quotations, which is just telling why it is important. The second line should ideally be about why. Why are we talking about it, and what is it that we're talking about? The third line would be more like, if we use this or if we work on this particular concept, then what would be the outcome? It would be beneficial, or it would reduce the wastage, reduce the attacks, number of attacks that are happening, or increase the efficiency, or make it more optimized, whatever may be the thing, right? And then fourth line can be about either applications of that particular area, or it can be about advantages of that area or disadvantages of that area, and you can conclude your paragraph number 1. So ideally, the challenge that you have to overcome is to maintain flow across this entire thing. फ्लो अक्रॉस देयर एट दिस एंटायर थिंग. आइडियली जिस चीज़ के बारे में आप फर्स्ट लाइन में बात कर दोगे, आप बार बार यू आर नॉट गोइंग टू रिपीट द वेरी सेम थिंग ओवर एंड ओवर एंड ओवर अगेन, right? So there has to be a there has to be a particular means and mechanism and place for everything that you're writing, so for starters, always make sure that there is a flow to your information delivery. Flow ऑफ योर इन्फॉर्मेशन डिलीवरी, कि आप जो चीज़ कहना चाह रहे हो, पहली बात वो सही तरीके से बोल पा रहे हो, और वो अपने आप में पूर्ण है कि नहीं है. इट शुड बी कंप्लीट इन इट सेल्फ, राइट? दैट इज़ हाउ वी गो अबाउट इट. हाफ हार्टेड सेंटेंसेज, हाफ हार्टेड स्टेटमेंट्स आर नॉट एक्सेप्टेबल, दे आर रिजेक्टेड. ऐसे कैसे? योर सेंटेंसेज मस्ट बी कंप्लीट and they must have some proof or validation, or proof or validation that it is correct, in order to judge the correctness of what you're saying. And ideally, this is how I like to write it. So you have words. सबसे पहले तो यहाँ पे हमें थोड़ी सी चोरी करनी होती है ना, and I'll write that later. Words, if you add all of those words, it gives rise to sentences, correct? If you sum up these sentences, it will then give rise to paragraph. That is also correct. If you sum these paragraphs, they are going to give you sections. Now this is also correct. And if you sum or add these sections, it is going to give you your paper, which is your end result. So ideally, we are starting from words. We are adding those words together in order to form sentences. Once we have those sentences, we make paragraphs out of it. Once we have those paragraphs, we have sections, and ultimately we have a paper. Now, यहाँ पे you are stealing technical words from other paper. When you are highlighting in your reading phase, you are highlighting those words. Sometimes we say that it is optimized, sometimes we use the word efficient. बहुत technical words use करते हैं हम. Any topic that you pick, you'll find that there is a lot of technical jargon that is going around. That means you have to memorize these words, whatever is important for you. Once you memorize these words, you will add some meaning, and there would be some feeling that you're going to portray. And once you start portraying it, once these words are added together, then we have these sentences. Now sentences are also one thing that you're going to read or derived from papers, right? This is also something that you're going to derive from papers. And again, highlighting also becomes very important. Sometimes some people have written very beautifully, right? So you read, you understand, and then you write it in your own manner. It has to come from you. It cannot be direct copy paste. So sentences are also very important. And then comes your paragraph. Ideally, we go like this. We first determine the sections, right? So just to have a broad overview or broad categorization, then we think about paragraphs, that what is it that I'm trying to convey using that paragraph. Once we know that अच्छा इस पैराग्राफ में broad overview आएगा, इसमें specific आएगा, इस पैराग्राफ में applications आएंगे, इसमें challenges आएंगे, इसमें statistics आएंगे. Once you have the what very clear, then it becomes easier to form those sentences. After all, you have to just write 3-4. And once I start questioning, this 3-4 will expand to 5-7 or maybe 10. Depends on the work. And then you're going to fill it up with those words. So it's a two-way process, right? From this way also and from this way also. But ideally, you're going to look for words which will form the sentences, which will further form the paragraphs, then comes section, and then finally comes your paper. At the end of everything, please remember this word. This is very important and very significant word. Coherent or coherence. And on that note, because my internet is working now, I would like to search the dictionary meaning of this. Coherent. See, logical or consistent, forming a unified whole. This is the thing that I'm looking for. Forming a unified whole, right? So ideally, what we are doing is, by coherent I mean that your work should collapse towards a single topic and it should reinforce a single thing. So ideally, this is your topic, right? And this is your entire work. It should go in circles, and at the end of the day, all of this should come back and should fall down to the title that you have proposed. It should collapse here. And all of these layers which are outside, these are supposed to be coherent. Coherent का मतलब they should be part of a whole. यही थी ना भी definition. Part of a whole. They also used the word logical, and they also used the word unified. Right? So unified is also very important. जो भी आप title दे रहे हो उसकी तरफ जो explanation है, it should be very very unified. It should be coherent. It should be consistent. It should be meaningful. And last but not least, everything should make sense. Everything should make sense. There should be no loose words. There should be no loose words. And everything should have a meaning, a purpose, and it should make sense. It should not be random. It should not be random. है ना? There has to be a flow. फिर थोड़ा और deeper, फिर थोड़ा और deeper, फिर थोड़ा और deeper, फिर conclusion. यहाँ से आपने start किया. So that's how you go in a paper, depth wise. ऐसा नहीं होगा कि यहाँ आप broad बातें करो, यहाँ आप depth में बातें करो. No, it goes serially. It goes in a coherent manner. Second is, use only those words that are important. Use smaller sentences for first. If it is possible to break a sentence into two, then break it down into two. And please remember that every sentence has a story to tell. Every sentence has a story to tell. That is why the placement becomes very, very important, where you are placing and what you are placing, and with what kind of words and figures and data are you know placing it. So use smaller sentences whenever possible. If you've written something, बड़े बड़े सेंटेंस लिख देते हैं बच्चे, मैंने देखे कई बार, चार पांच, ये एक ही सेंटेंस चल रहा है, जो कि आइडली तो पैराग्राफ हो जाना चाहिए था इसमें, लेकिन एक ही सेंटेंस चल रहा है, तोड़ते ही नहीं हो तुम लोग. सो ब्रेक डाउन वट एवर यू आर डिलीवरिंग, ब्रेक इट डाउन इनटू स्मॉलर सेंटेंसेस. Try to break it into two if possible. Then every sentence must have a story to tell. You should look at the placement of your overall work. You should also look at what is it that you're delivering and the kind of words as well as data that you are using. I would again make another video to revive or to rediscuss how to write, because it is important to understand how to write, and finding your style will take some time. It won't happen overnight. Again, it is a process, right? So please remember that this entire thing is a process, and come back to that 0 1 and reading writing thing that I was saying, right? So you're here, you're reading, you're at 0, and you're just inputting into the black hole. And when you enter the writing wala phase, then ideally you will have to produce output, you'll have to start writing. So in the next video we're going to talk about when to start writing, right? Which sections to target first, and how to design the workflow or flow of information or whatever is it that you're presenting. So these are the questions that we're going to discuss in the next video. Thank you so very much. As usual, you can put the questions in the comment box, and I would also request you to please subscribe to my channel so that it comes up, because it doesn't come up. Thank you so very much.